Hello and welcome to Roll for Question, the stream where a veteran DM offers to answer questions about Dungeons and Dragons you might have. And in the meantime, I'm going to be talking about a particular topic that I've heard come up several times in the past. Gets asked by new players periodically and veteran players, veteran DMs, new DMs. Not necessarily the newest DMs, but question. Can D&D do horror? That's not usually the question they ask. They usually ask, how do I do horror in D&D? Both valid questions, both important questions. Let's first answer, can D&D do horror? And the short answer is no, but yes. Yes, it can. It can do horror potentially better than many other TTRPGs. But let's start with a no. How do you do horror in D&D? To answer that question, we first need to understand what is horror. What are we aiming for when we're trying to achieve horror? How do we capture that in a non-game sense? Horror is one of those, you know it when you see it kind of things. It's a type of tension. It's a type of fear. It's built on fear of what happens next. Not all fear of what happens next is horror, but horror is fear of what happens next. There's other forms of tension, like if you're in a dungeon and you see a big door that says the boss room and you know the boss is behind that door, there's some tension in opening that door. There's not necessarily horror in opening that door. You know, horror is more about like getting that tension and putting it in a state where the player doesn't want to like mentally open that door. They want to avoid that. They want to get away from that. They have to open that door. You are forcing them to open that door to play the game, and they're enjoying the game, so they're going to open that door. But they really don't want to open that door. They really would rather do anything else other than open that door. That's horror. There's probably a better way to explain that. But what you're trying to do is instill in your players a fear and a desire to not progress while forcing them to progress through virtue of the game is fun. So, horror is built upon several things. The most core piece that you absolutely need, horror relies upon the unknown, because the fuel for any sort of deep internal horror that a player might have comes from not knowing. It comes from their imaginations, and the way that you sort of instill that fear is you put something down in front of the player. They don't know what's going on, but their imagination kicks in, and their imagination fills in the gaps of like what it could be. It could be this, it could be this, it could be that. And generally, people's imaginations are many times more adept at building dread than anything that a dungeon master could do. Many times. It's worse than you think, or you think worse than it is. And horror is you exploiting that fact, putting the unknown in front of the player, saying, what do you do? And then their imagination runs wild, builds the horror that way. That's the core of it. There's something unknown here, and my imagination is making it really, really scary. How you get there, you need a few elements to instill that overactive imagination to build the horror in your game. Because it's not just a matter of like, there's a door. If I just say that, that's not horror. That's not terrifying. You don't know what's behind the door, but like, it takes more than just actually putting the unknown. Because every game has the unknown. What sets horror apart is planting little seeds in your game. Little seeds that by themselves may be innocuous, but they inspire an overactive imagination to bend towards the terrifying. So it's not just a matter of there's a door. There's a door with skulls on it. All right, that's not terrifying. There's a door and you hear a noise coming from behind it. All right, that's not terrifying either. It's not a matter of the unknown that's right in front of you. It's a matter of the unknown that is out there, off in the distance. You're in a dungeon, and no. Back up. Before the dungeon. You're in a town. And this town, perfectly normal town, nothing to worry about, no signs of distress, well, except for that one tree over there. That one tree that's constantly that nothing grows around it, and like sounds are muted around it, and anyone who sits by that tree, they end up dead a week later. It's everyone fears that tree. It's cursed or something. That tree, we avoid that tree. Okay, that's weird. What's going on with that tree? Who knows? That's a seed. That's a seed that can bloom into horror. It's not. We haven't revealed what is going on with that tree. We've got clues. We've got a vibe, and this tree is cordoned off. Everyone in the town fears it. So there's it's a pocket of unknown surrounded by a sea of like perfectly safe, fine, nothing to worry about. So we don't have to. We don't push the players to explore this tree. We don't want the players to explore this tree. We don't want this tree to be like, drop everything, we're going to figure this tree out, because that's our seed. We need that to build up, to grow into horror. And you proceed with the game. You plant a few more seeds around. You're trying not to let the players kind of peek behind the curtain, try and figure out what's going on. You're just trying to like unsettle people, plant little seeds of the unknown, let them bloom into horror later on. And that is a core element of how you do horror. It's planting the unknown, letting the player's imagination build it up into something well beyond like anything the GM could put together to try and be scary. And then once you've planted the seeds, it's time to harvest. Once you've got like players good and terrified, that's when you got to push them to open that door that they really don't want to open. You do that by making the game fun. You do that by pushing the players to proceed, even though their like instincts are saying, "Oh no, don't go to that door. Don't touch that tree. Oh, do not walk up to that mirror. That creepy child with no face. Do not approach that child." But if you don't, the game doesn't progress. We're stuck. We're stuck here forever. You might lose the plot. You might fail the quest if you don't. That's the kind of thing that that's the kind of thing you're trying to set up in a game. There are other elements to horror that are very important. They're not like foundationally important, but they're very important for sure. Horror is all about presentation. It's all about setting a mood, setting a vibe, setting putting out signs that like, okay, subconsciously this is a horror game, so you should be in that mindset of playing that this is a horror game. So like setting out creepy art to as like backgrounds for like where the party is, putting together like soft, sad music in the background, candles, and I don't know what other paraphernalia for horror there is. Like put pictures of skulls around, have a like picture of a bird, a crow watching the party. I don't know. You want to get people in the mindset. Important for you plant the seeds. The presentation of the game is kind of the fertilizer for those seeds blossoming into horror. So I highly recommend it. And none of what I've talked about is D&D. Nothing I've talked about is specific to D&D. It's not even specific to TTRPGs. Like, this is true of like video games, video game horror and stuff like that. Not so much like movie horror. I don't know anything about book horror. But as far as games go, like, nothing I've said here is particular to D&D. And there's no reason any of this couldn't apply to D&D. You can absolutely take the things I'm talking about, implement them in a D&D game, and make a horror game out of D&D. And in some cases, you know, D&D is uniquely, I shouldn't say uniquely, it's better suited for running horror than like maybe a Call of Cthulhu or a Dread kind of game, because just of the Call of Cthulhu is a horror game first and foremost. I don't know if that's entirely correct. It's a game about how do I just say? It's a game about Cthulhu's, okay? And Dread it's in the title. Those games are built with the idea that when you're going into them, you are building a horror game from scratch. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Hello, welcome, Ember's Tale. How's it going? I think what I'm trying to say is in Call of Cthulhu, if you are encountering something, you're kind of expecting the horror. It takes a certain shape. It is designed to take a certain shape. In D&D, it's not really built for horror. There's no real places you can plug horror into, which that's why I say no, D&D is not built for horror. But it can be better because it kind of gives you the space to do it yourself, which you can do things in D&D for horror that you can't do in Call of Cthulhu, because Call of Cthulhu, if you start like tinkering with the mechanics, you will potentially like make it worse over making it better. Whereas in D&D, like it's not built for it, straight up. So can you make it worse? Not as much. Just joined 2 new D&D games after I left a 2-year game, so I'm feeling really good. Nice. 2 games at the same time? That's awesome. Horror is, because it's not coded into D&D, the Dungeon Master has to make it work all on their own. You have to do a lot of heavy lifting. I don't recommend new players take D&D and make a horror game out of it. That is not a new player activity. But if you know what you're doing, can you make a D&D game a horror game? Absolutely. 100%. Let's talk about how you might do that. We talked about the ingredients that you need. You need the unknown. You're planting seeds of the unknown, and then you're fertilizing them with the presentation of your game, a horror game. Presenting your game. And then we are reaping the horror by pushing the players into touching the things that they really don't want to touch. Interacting with the things they really don't want to interact. I like to there's a 4-point kind of stages of a horror game that I don't remember who I heard this from. This is from like a blog post a long time ago, but it always stuck with me and made a lot of sense. Where you divide your horror game into 4 sections. You start out with the beginning, the intro, where everything is normal. Everything is fine, except for this one thing. But that's off in the distance. You don't need to worry about it. You don't even need to worry about that. That has nothing to do with what you're up to. And then you go to stage 2, which is the plot starts moving you in the direction of the weirdness that you were avoiding in stage 1. Stage 1 is all about setting the background. Stage 2 is about you walking towards the background. You're not going to touch the horror yet, but you're approaching it. You're getting closer. You're in the same dungeon as the horror now. There's a weird shadow down here, and you're not here to find the shadow, but it's down there, and you need to go down there and recover the missing child or whatever. That's stage 2. Stage 3 is you go into a room and the lights all go out. The horror's not here yet, but it's close. The shadow is nearby. It's in somewhere on this floor, and it's coming for you. It certainly knows about you. This is the moment where you are everything you've built up is either going to be something you harvest in a horror, or it's going to fall flat and your game sucks. That's stage 3. And then stage 4 is there's the shadow, surprise, it's there. That's when you get the payoff of either you hit the players with the scary thing and they either terrified or not. And stage 4 is it. Once the players see the shadow, that's it. It's not unknown anymore. That's kind of the thing about horror that makes it a lot more difficult to implement than like action or intrigue, or I don't know. Horror is all about the unknown, as we said at the beginning. Foundation, the unknown. Your imagination is filling in the details. Once you know it, your imagination is like, I have nothing to do. I'm just going to take a nap. Stops filling those details. And you know what? Horror dies. I mean, I shouldn't say it dies. It takes a rest. And if you want to bring the horror back, you got to sprinkle in some new unknown. You got to sprinkle in some new bits and pieces, new weirdness. That is very difficult when you are when you're building up a story. It's one thing to introduce, like, this is a perfectly normal world. There's a weird tree over there. It's another thing to introduce, this is a perfectly normal world. There's a weird tree over there. And over here, there's a weird monkey. And over here, the moon is weird. And up there, like on Tuesdays, time goes backwards. You know, that's just like, at some point, it stops being a normal world. The only real way you can get around that is if you set up all of the weirdness right at the beginning, and then you kind of like approach it gradually. I shouldn't say gradually. You approach it in stages when you need it. So the first quarter of the campaign is all about this weird tree, and the second quarter of this campaign is all about Tuesdays being making clocks go backwards, and the third arc of the campaign can be about the monkey or whatever. Horror has a finite runtime, a finite amount of runway before, like, that's it. You can't do anymore. And trying to extend that runway is very difficult. All right, so now that we've laid that out, how do we make horror happen in D&D? This is why I say D&D, not good for horror. You can do great horror in D&D, but not good. This is not good for D&D, or for horror. Because D&D does not offer you that much. It offers you a character with powers, features, spells, ways to discover the unknown that maybe are not helpful to setting a horror game. For example, there's a spell at first level called Identify. I don't know why I'm bringing it up. I'm just doing that. I'm not even in the right. I didn't even click the right button. There's a spell called Identify. You cast Identify and you touch an item and it'll tell you all of the magical properties of that item. It'll tell you all the magical properties of a person. It'll tell you all the magical properties of any weird thing. This spell kills horror. If you see a weird mirror and the party casts Identify on it, they're going to know every property about that mirror and every property of any magic coming off of that mirror. That's the opposite of the unknown. Imagination goes to sleep, horror dies. All right. There are other spells in this game for divination purposes. A lot of them, they're not perfect. Identify is kind of a special one, but a lot of them are not perfect. There's Augury. Augury lets you ask a question, and it gives you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay, we can work with that. There's a weird mirror over there. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Doesn't ruin the mystique of the mirror. But we need to be careful, because Augury's fine. Some of the divinations are fine. Some of them are not. There are just too many ways in the game for players to learn information that puts horror in jeopardy. It really does. I think, was it there's a way to detect creatures. Is it locate creature? You have to name specific creatures. This can ruin things. In my example earlier with the shadow, if I name shadow, I know exactly where it is. What does that do for horror? That makes it immensely more difficult to put the shadow next to the party without the party without the party knowing, without the party's consent. That's what I should say. The shadow is getting closer to you. Let's back up. Okay, great. This is a great game. So what you need to do is make sure that any seeds of the unknown you plant fit in, either they work within the rules of D&D as provided, all of the features that the characters have, all of the spells out there, all of the magic, all of the D&D stuff. Any horror that you plant has to fit within the power structure of D&D. Or during session 0, anything that would ruin your horror, you need to tell the players, don't do this. Don't do that. Do not take Identify. Identify is banned. Don't take Legend Lore. Do not take Dimension Door. That can ruin a lot of horror too. Don't take is there See Invisibility? If there's a spell that could ruin your horror, you have to ban it, or it's going to get used to ruin your horror. That's tricky. That's hard. That requires you to first know the entire game front to back, so you know exactly what to look for. I can't do that. Like, I've been playing this game for 2 decades plus, and I'm sure that there's at least one spell that I don't know in the player's handbook. And that could be the spell that's just like, here's a weird shadow. I cast like Daylight. Like, has anyone ever cast Daylight before? I can see a DM getting surprised by the Daylight spell. Yeah, you just gotta keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind, because we're building on the unknown, D&D has a lot of very, I should say, structured rules for how things work. So whenever you are attacked, usually that targets your armor class, or you roll a saving throw. It is very rude to apply an effect to a player without attacking them, and their armor class can protect them, or letting them roll a saving throw. That's just a core part of D&D. You can't work around that. And you might think, all right, well, what if I do a thing? No saving throw. Are the players going to buy that? Is the question. Because if you apply something, if you apply an effect to players, and you're like, yeah, you've been afflicted with I don't know, you're possessed by the shadow. No saving throw, no nothing. Like, is the player going to remain immersed in the game? Are they still going to stay engaged, or are they going to look at you with a funny look and go, I think you're railroading me. Like, I don't particularly know if that's a good place to be. You don't want to be in that position where you're having to justify the horror that you're inflicting upon the party. And you want to give them a chance to if you also break the rules of the game and go outside of that, when it comes to the player's turn to figure out what to do, if you're breaking the rules, then how are the players supposed to figure out what the best next step is? Like, there's a shadow in the next room. Is it just going to ignore walls and just walk through walls, and like, is it going to, like, the lights are on but I can't see it anyway because the DM said so? It can possess, even though we have would a protection spell help us in this case, or would it just bypass that? You know, these are questions that the players are going to ask themselves, and the more questions they have to ask about rules being broken, the longer their turns are going to take, the less fun they're going to have. They might lose engagement, and once they lose engagement, they might just disconnect from the horror entirely, and that's bad. You know, that's the opposite of the goal. So it's best to work within the rules of the game as much as possible, and the rules of this game do not lend themselves to horror whatsoever. There's very little ways to plug in weirdness into what is happening without setting off the players, like, yeah. It's not to say that it can't be done. There are certainly ways to kind of diffuse that gut reaction players might have. You can do it in session 0, for sure. Session 0 is magic, because anything that you're like, man, it'd be really cool if I could do this, but the players won't like it. During session 0, ask your players, hey, is it cool if I do this thing? And if they say yes, that you got consent, go for it. You did it. You're the best. Problem solved. And if they say no, well, you know, they would have said no when you did it anyway, and ruin the game. Now you have an opportunity to think of an alternative, and maybe the alternative will work. It is not really a spoiler either if you bring it up in session 0, because I mean, it's too early. If you're like, hey, is it cool if things possess you with no saving throw? You know, players will be like, that's a weird thing to ask, but okay. They won't really know what that applies to until the time when they encounter the thing that it applies to is. Until then, it's just an unknown planted there. It's like a little seed, a seed that you can easily fertilize by, like, I mean, that writes itself, basically. If the DM says, hey, is it cool if monsters possess, no saving throw. Players are going to be thinking about, all right, where are the possessing monsters? Is it behind me? Is it in front of me? No. Yeah, that's a seed. That works great. And if you get that ironed out in session 0, then you're golden. You got all the ingredients for horror you need, and you've even started the horror building process. Probably should name that like the tension building process. How you do it in session 0 is a topic that is very complicated, very long. A good session 0 makes or breaks a game, and it's not really the topic for this video. It's kind of like that's a whole thing, but it's good. It's good. What a good horror game I find. No. Hold on. Gears are turning. Give me a second. What makes D&D potentially great for horror is that these characters are not built for horror. None of these characters. So you have all these tools. Fighters have all these tools for fighting. Monks have all these tools for doing what monks do, including fighting. They can also like jump up walls and deflect attacks, and they can do cool stuff. And you got spellcasters. They can do all these sorts of weird things. And if you file away all of the parts of the game that could ruin your horror, you're still left with quite a bit of game for the players to interact with and find emergent qualities to the game. So if you put down like horror, the players can still interact with that horror in a way that doesn't disrupt the doesn't disrupt the fear. So it'd be good story beats for a D&D horror story, for a D&D horror game. Well, so what I was saying earlier, the structure that I know of is a 4-part structure that I've heard from someone else, and it's always stuck with me. You do horror in 4 parts. Part 1 is you build unease. You just have bits and pieces of weirdness. You plant the seeds of weirdness. Part 2 is you put the players in a position where they're not by the weirdness, but they're in the same vicinity as the weirdness. It's around. They're aware of it. And then part 3 is you put them on a collision course with the weirdness. And then part 4 is they actually meet the weirdness, and that builds out horror in the players' minds pretty well. So like you've got part 1, you're in a town. There's a weird tree that kills people if they touch them. That tree, whatever. And it kills them in a week. Part 2 is okay. The party's been hired to go into the building that's next to that tree and retrieve somebody. Like they're rescuing there's a hostage situation there, and they're being rescued. They need to rescue somebody there. And then part 3 is the kidnappers pull the. This is completely falling apart in my head. This is not horror. What am I talking about? No. Part 1, weird tree. Part 2. No. I'd need to think about that one. I think you could build horror out of a weird tree, but I don't know where you go from there. I would need to think about that one a little more. It's not as simple as just weird tree, make the party touch it. That doesn't work. But you could have a what I really like mirrors. I think mirrors are cool. I think a mirror is an excellent little gateway into building up a lot of horror. But how you go there? So you could have like a mirror that is in a store. It's just a mirror. It's rumored to be cursed. Everyone knows that it's a cursed mirror, and you can't trust the things that you see inside that mirror. And what are some scary things? You know, things that would be scary in other games aren't scary in D&D, like skeletons and ghosts. Very not scary. And they're not scary because in D&D you have the tools to fight those things, and those things are perfect. Those things are well known. Like, clerics get a feature called Turn Undead. They get that feature because skeletons and ghosts are so known. They don't get that feature because, like, yeah, they get that feature because that's just a well-known enemy that you fight. But if you have a weird mirror and the things you see in that mirror, everyone knows you shouldn't trust the things you see in that mirror, and have one of the party, when they're at the store, they look in the mirror and they see a mark on someone, and then a week later that person, but they only see that mark in the mirror, they don't see that mark in real life, and then a week later that person dies. There's like a whole other campaign, a whole other story going on, and then a week later that person dies, and then the party gets tasked with a quest to go somewhere, and they find that mirror there. And that mirror, they get the opportunity to look in that mirror again, and then they see that one of the party is marked in the exact same way. That is more approaching what I think of as horror in a game, but there's a lot of gaps there, and it's not. I haven't really thought this out. Okay, there's not something I can just brainstorm of in 5 minutes. I don't have a good example prepped. There are horror one-shots you could take and sort of adapt them. I feel like horror works best when it's not standalone. When it's not like, this is a one-shot and you are going into a spooky house, and the end of the one-shot is when you leave the spooky house. Because I feel like that's too direct. That's too on the nose. And horror, you want a bit more, like, I don't want to say misdirection. You want a bit more sleight of hand when it comes to the story. Because you don't want the party to be looking directly at the scary. You want them to be looking towards just an ordinary goal, a normal goal, and then the scary walks up and sidles up behind. And that's, I think, a lot better of a landing for a horror story. So, like, would it be better to take a normal one-shot and add horror elements to it? Or would it be better to take a horror one-shot and add normal elements to it? That'd be an interesting thing to go through. I don't know of any horror one-shots for 5th edition. I should clarify. I mean, there's like Death House, and there's I could just bring up Death House, couldn't I? Can I bring up Death House? Let me hold on. Let me see if I can hunt down the PDF for it. Death House. Did they update that to 2024? Nope, they did not. Let me just copy, paste. Yeah. Death House. This is supposed to be a horror one-shot. It's also the introduction to Curse of Strahd. So if you don't want spoilers for Curse of Strahd, look away. Because we're going to be looking at this and going through it and seeing how does it feel horror-wise. I've run through this dungeon before, so I've played through Curse of Strahd, so I have opinions. This isn't spoiling me. Death House is a big ol' house in the middle of Barovia and Ravenloft. It starts by introducing the party to two characters, Rose and Thorn. And they're supposed to be creepy and weird. They're supposed to make you go, huh? Because little kids just walk up to you and say, hey, could you go in that house? Actually, what do they say? I can't entirely remember. There's a monster in that house. Oh, that's it? There's just some kids and they say there's a monster in that house. That's literally the hook? Man, I don't remember it being that thin, but it is. If it's a one shot, the players are kind of expected to go towards the plot. So, that's just, I guess that'll work. Yeah, it's just two kids crying. They say go in that house, there's a monster in there. And the party goes in there because they're the party. That's what they're supposed to do. And they look like this. And this is actually a prime example of what I mean by presentation. Because these do not look like normal kids. You show a picture, two kids walk up to you, you think like, oh, two little, like, normal looking, innocent looking children. No, these, like, you get this. You're thinking, okay, something off about these kids. This ain't right. But you go into the house anyway. Oh, and then the game actually railroads you into the house if you don't go in. The mists will just shove you into the house. Let's just skip down to the map, because I find looking at the map helps figure out what is going on in the house. First, you've got 4 stories. Cool. There's a whole basement, but we're not going to look at that right now. First floor, you come in through the entrance right here. Not a big first floor. Is this floor just going to appear to be normal? It should. There should, if we're trying to go for a horror aesthetic, we need to build up to it. You can't just go horror right off the top of the bat. So we want, hopefully, to be establishing a normal house. We want to be, there could be weird things going on, but for the most part, like, your guard is up, but nothing's attacking you. So we'll keep that in mind. It's the first 5 rooms. Got the entrance. Doesn't seem to be anything interesting about the entrance. Do I need to move my camera? Oh, there's a whole thing about features. The entrance, there's nothing going on here. This is just there's a gate, there's oil lamps, there's a south wall with a shield emblazoned on it, with a coat of arms. Room 2. It's just a main hall. There's a longsword, just a normal longsword mounted on the wall. A windmill cameo worked into the hill. Okay. Characters you search for secret doors find that there are sea serpents and skulls inconspicuously woven into the wall designs. Weird, but okay. Not lethal, not scary. Weird. That's it. That's perfectly. That's fine. We've gone through the first and second room and nothing's happened. The Den of Wolves. Really, that's what it's called. The third room. Let me just make sure I have. So you go in. Oh, this is just one room. Go in here. The den is to the south, and to the north. I assume this is the kitchen and the dining room. The den has a fireplace, chairs, 2 cabinets, and one of the cabinets is locked. It has weapons in it. All right. There's also a trapdoor, but it can't be detected or opened. So this is this is not here. This is peeking behind the screen. You cannot interact with this trapdoor. It doesn't exist yet. Perfectly normal den. Nothing going on. Nothing to worry about. Everything's fine. Let's look at room 4. The kitchen. It's tidy. Wait, wasn't there a 2B? The cloak room. It just has cloaks. Okay. Okay, room 4. Kitchen and pantry. There's a kitchen. It's got, kitchen things in it. It's also got a dumbwaiter. Do you want to go up the dumbwaiter? Sure. That's it. That's all that's in here. All the food in the pantry appears fresh but tastes bland. Weird. Centerpiece of this wood paneled dining room is it's carved mahogany, wall paneling. There's people who search can find that there are twisted faces carved in the tree trunks and wolves. It's weird. It's all weird. This is super weird. Perfectly weird. And that's the first floor. The first floor is those rooms. Nothing. There's nothing on those floors. Why? Because we're trying to build unease. We're trying to make the party feel like everything's fine. There's nothing to be scared of. Except for that weird thing in the back. But that's just a weird thing in the back. I don't particularly see this as successful as far as what it's trying to do. When I played through Death House, we were already primed because it's the beginning of Curse of Strahd. We were already primed for horror, so we had just fought werewolves and we had just been chased around town and met Strahd. So when we got to the Death House, it was like a perfectly normal house. Yeah, I don't believe that. Why would I believe that this is a perfectly normal house? We were past the stage of unease and we were ready for stage 2, and this is trying to pull us back into stage 1. And yeah, but that is what it's trying to do here. And it's not bad. Not a bad idea. Let's see how long it keeps that facade up. Because the party, presumably, they might search the first floor. That's traditionally what you do. You search the first floor, then you move to the second floor. Then you search the second floor, and you move to the third floor. When do we fight anything? I shouldn't say fight. When do we encounter anything horror? Upper hall. That's room 6, right? Yeah. Room 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10. Room 6 through 10 is the second floor. We've got unlit oil lamps. You can light them. There's suits of armor. And the doors are carved with dancing youths, although you can search them and discover that they are fighting off swarms of bats. This is kind of a weird thing to be hinging weirdness off of. I guess the expectation is the party is going to be searching for secret doors, and you can give them, you can kind of hook off of that and give them the weirdness through those searches. It's kind of a D&D-ism, you know? You search for traps. You search for secret rooms. You find a weird face carved into the doors. You find that there's I don't know. You find something that's unsettling. Sure. You're working within the confines of the system. Like, as weird as this is, it's probably the best way to do it in D&D, and that's how you do it. I couldn't tell you a better way, at least. If you know a better way to introduce weirdness, well, room 7, we have it's just a servant's room. There's a dumbwaiter to go down and up. It connects to the kitchen. Is that no? Oh, it does connect to the kitchen, but it keeps going up too. So if you wanna take the dumbwaiter up, that's usually a bad idea, but you can do that. We've got a library here. The libraries are excellent for building unease. They just are. They're just great. You got bookshelves. The books fall apart if they're taken from the hat. Whatever. There's just poetry and fiction here. Huh, that's it. There's nothing weird in this library. All right. There's an iron key in this library, but that's it. That's not weird. That's normal. That's a normal thing. This is normal. Whatever. A secret door. There is a secret door in this library that leads to a secret room. Okay, here we go. This is where it gets weird, right? Got a secret room. It contains a heavy wooden chest, and it's trapped. Oh, and there's a skeleton that already triggered the darts. Okay. Cool. Within the skeleton's hand is a letter. And it says stuff, and I don't particularly want to get into that. This chest contains a lot of treasure that is completely unrelated to horror. The windmill, there's no horror here. This is a D&D. This is a D&D room through and through. There's a secret room here. We open it, we find treasure. The treasure has some plot. No horror here. Conservatory. Upholstered chairs with a harpsichord. Near the fire is a large standing harp. Close inspection reveals that several of the carvings are of well-dressed skeletons. Okay. The balcony. Wait, was balcony? Was that the last? Where's the second floor? Okay, no, that's the third floor. So, third floor has a balcony. I want to point out, we've gone through two floors. Excuse me, 2 floors of this mansion, and all we've done is it's just a mansion. There's nothing unusual about this mansion other than the weirdness and the carvings, and the walls, and the pictures, and that's only if you search for it. There's also a secret room that has nothing to do with horror whatsoever. What's there to be afraid of? There's a monster. We've been told there's a monster in here, but that could mean anything. We're not really there's not enough seeds. that our imagination is blooming at this point. We've got the one seed from the NPCs that there's a monster in this mansion somewhere. We've seen zero evidence of that. We've seen zero evidence. We've heard zero evidence of that. We search around. Not scared at this point. You know, I think this is the point where I'd say, you know, the first floor, okay, that could be weird. That could be normal. Second floor, probably should have introduced a harbinger, an omen, something to say like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't just a normal mansion. There's a monster in here somewhere, you know? I think that would have added to the horror a lot. But to be fair, there's no guarantee that the party searches through the first floor, goes upstairs, searches through the second floor, goes upstairs, searches through the floor, third floor. What they could have done is just gone directly to the stairs, gone directly to the top floor. What do you do then? Make the adventure a little more modular. Add a little note somewhere at the beginning. After the party has searched 6 rooms, roll a d6. One of these things happens as a harbinger. The monster howls, or the house shakes, an earthquake happens, or something like that. You know, something to go from stage 1 of horror, which is this is mostly normal, to stage 2, which is, oh, this ain't normal. Let's see what the third floor has. Okay, there's a balcony, which is the top of the stairs. There's an animated armor that attacks the party. Okay, I want to point out, animated armors are a great enemy for building horror, but only if you have non-animated armors, like, all over the place. I think we've seen animated armors I think we've seen armors stands here, yeah, in the upper hall. So, a perceptive DM would know to establish these suits of armor early. Are there any on the first floor? I don't believe there are. Establishing them means that when the party gets up to this floor up here, to the balcony, this is more of a surprise. But otherwise, this wasn't foreshadowed. This just happens, and you get to deal with it. And if the monster isn't foreshadowed, then there's really no opportunity for the player imagination to sort of build it up, to sort of instill horror when it attacks. And if that isn't the case, then, you know, you go up to the top of the stairs and animated armor attacks. Okay, you kill it. Okay, great. Let's move on with the game. Doesn't land as a horror monster. It is a D&D fight for sure, though. And the party is level 1 at this point, and an animated armor is a genuine threat to the party. They may knock one character to 0 hit points, but not really something you fear, you know. If you're at a door and you know there's one animated armor behind that door, you're not like, oh, I don't want to open that door. You're more like, all right, let's prep an ambush. You stand there. I'll ready in action, you know. That's the kind of thing that ends up for. Okay, and there's a secret door here that leads to the attic. So the only way to get to the attic is through a secret door, I guess. Anyway, the bedroom looks like the bedroom is just a normal bedroom. It's even got treasure in it. And there's a full-length mirror, but we don't do any mirrors. Great little window to weirdness. This one is not. This one's just a normal mirror. In fact, this whole bedroom is just weird, normal. There's treasure. Sure. We got a bathroom. It only merits a paragraph at most. It's a bathroom. The plumbing doesn't work. Is the last thing it says. Whatever. Storage room. We got a storage room. It has a broom of animated attack. Oh boy. That's not foreshadowed either. So there's no reason for the party. There's no horror built up for this at all. It's just you open the closet and a broom attacks you. That's a very D&D thing. That's not a very scary thing. And that's going to be exactly like the animated armor fight above, except I guarantee that if the text above has mentions of brooms anywhere, the DM is not going to mention brooms. They're not going to establish brooms. So when the party gets attacked by a broom, they're going to be like, what the fuck? Nursemaid suite. There's a specter in here. I think. No, this is just a specter. Okay. The specter has plot relevance, but the party is just killing the specter. And the specter is very much a threat at level 1, because the specter can one-shot anybody at this point. Fighting a specter, not scary. Not really foreshadowed. I think the specter is the only scary thing from this point on to the top of the house, except for I think there are ghosts. But let me check. Okay, there's an attic hall. There's a secret door in the nursemaid suite that goes up to the attic. So there's multiple ways in the attic, but they're all bound by a secret. You have to find a secret way up. Yeah, okay. So it's entirely possible the party never finds that. Not a big deal, I don't think. Go up to the attic hall. It's locked, but the party could have the key if they diligently searched the library. Don't know why they would, but if they did, they have the key. Otherwise, they can just pick the lock. It's pretty easy. Spare bedroom. Nothing of note in there. There's a storage room. They find that someone was stabbed to death. Now this is a sign. This is a harbinger right here. There's a corpse. This evidence that the corpse died to stabbing. This is something you find after you fight the specter. Unless you blitz through the dungeon, blitz through the house. So it's the right idea, it's just in the wrong spot. There's a secret door in this room, but it only appears when certain conditions are met. Okay. The secret stairs. Oh, this takes you down to the basement. Okay. To the dungeon level. So we can finally play the game proper. The dungeon level. Okay. Wow. So the way to get to the basement is through the attic. Now that's some video game logic right there. Anyway. The children's room is the last room. And this room has... Oh, this room reveals all the secret doors in the Mansion. Smart. Okay. You put that in the very last room. That's fine from a sense of like, if the party is stuck, this is how you get them unstuck. Oh, and touching the dollhouse makes ghosts attack you. Ghosts will absolutely kill the party. They're level 1 at this point. But I don't believe they're... I don't believe they attack. They only fight in self-defense. Yeah. And these guys are meant to be a harbinger for something scary, but that's not really expressed. Like, there's some ghosts here, and they don't like it when you bother their stuff. But they're just, they're just here. There's a secret door in the attic. You can go down there. Oh, they mentioned the monster in the basement. Okay. So, never mind. That does be a harbinger. But it's being delivered by ghosts. I think when I was in Death House the last time, is at this point where I was like, just let's just get to the end, because we had searched the whole manor and that took hours, and we were like, we haven't even gotten to the spooky yet. And some ghosts happen, and they're telling us things that we already know, and there's a secret door to the attic. But they're telling us that in the room with the attic. With the secret door, right? Oh, maybe they're not. Anyway, all of this to say, congratulations, you've gone through the buildup of horror. Now, we're going into the dungeon. We're taking the secret stairs. The secret door and shaft don't exist until the house reveals them, which can happen in one of two ways. The characters find Strahd's letter, or characters find the replica secret door in the attic of the dollhouse. Okay. Then we can go into the dungeon proper. And the problem I remember, is that this is just a dungeon crawl at this point. Dungeon crawls are very D&D. They're not very horror. Ghosts and skeletons are not scary in D&D. They're scary in other games, but not in D&D. Because they're a known quantity. They're a thing you know. They are not a seed of the unknown. So when you come down here, you can either go to the right, which I believe is an ambush, or you can go to the left, which I think is there's a big nothing until you get around here. And then this is where the horror is supposed to culminate. Ghostly chanting. Okay, so there is something that's supposed to be a harbinger, but it's a bit late. Okay. Should also be said, you want to plant seeds of the unknown. You don't want those seeds to be so vague that they can be anything. You do want to give a little bit. You do want to build the player's imagination in the direction of horror. You don't want to be like, there's a weird object in that house over there. Weird object is too vague. There's a monster in that house. Monster is too vague. You need to add a few details, add a few like hints, add a few bits and pieces to make the player imagination go in the direction you want it to go, to inspire the horror. There's a monster down there. It's 30 feet tall, and its jaws can crush bone. That's not really good. Don't take my inability to brainstorm horror off the top of my head as a like measure of quality of anything, but ghostly chanting implies that the horror is something ghostly. That's good. Go further. And prior to this ghostly chanting, all we've known is there's a monster down here. We fought an animated armor. We fought a specter. We fought a broom. Were any of those the monster? And also, we talked to two ghosts. Were any of those the monster? Anyway, we go down, and there's branches. I don't remember what the branches were. We can either go to room 23, we can go to room 24, or we can go down to room 27 and 28. All right, 23. Oh, okay. It splits off. There's a bunch of crypts here. Some insects. Crypts are spooky, but they're not really spooky in a way that's connected to the actual horror. We got cult quarters, cultist quarters. There's a lot of treasure here. This is building unease, but we hear ghostly chanting at this point, so the game is trying to roll back the horror. Can't do that. You can't go back. Once you have put in the mind that the monster is in the same floor as you, you need to focus all of your horror on building up that monster. Not building up. There's a pouch made of human skin in one of these treasure chests. That's weird. Hidden spiked pit. That's a D&D thing. That's nothing to do with horror. There's a Grick. That's a D&D thing. That's nothing to do with horror. Grick, the organic trash compactor of D&D. It eats your garbage and also tries to eat you. There's a dining hall. And this is the trap, the ghouls. Not foreshadowed in any way, shape, or form. Just ghouls just happen. The only sign that you have that ghouls could be coming is that you've got a cultist quarters, you've got signs of cultists, and no bodies. But you know what? It would have been better if there were bodies. It would have been better if you had more foreshadowing, more buildup, more pointing towards these ghouls lying in wait. They're out there somewhere. They're waiting for you. But where? You know, they could be around that corner. They could be around that corner. They're in section 29. But the players don't know that. It would have been better to put a detail here. To say, hey, the cultists are still around. And they are not too happy to see you. If they see you. Oh well. We fight the ghouls, move on to the stairs down, and then we go down to the final floor. Oh, no we don't. What? Oh, we go down to here? I don't particularly remember. I thought after you fight the ghouls, then you just go straight. Maybe we skipped part of the dungeon because we were getting a little tired. That could have happened. Oh, there's 5 shadows here. Huh. There's a statue here of Strahd, and then shadows attack, and yeah, there's a door that's concealed, and There's a hidden trapdoor, and yeah, whatever. There's a cult leader's den. There's a mimic in this. There's ghasts in this. Okay, I definitely skipped some of this. When I ran through Death House. Yeah, I don't remember any of that. What I remember is going straight down to 35. Let's just go straight down to 35. The Reliquary. There's a bunch of ghosts. They've been chanting this whole time. Now we get to see them. That's the horror building up, and it would pay off if we had planted seeds and fertilized them better, but unfortunately these ghosts, they don't do anything. They're not the horror. They're not actually the horror. They're just ghosts. They're just chanting. They chant. There's a lot of things here. That's very un-horror to do. Right before a big fight, though, we gotta stock up the party. That's a very gamey thing to do. That's a very game designer thing to do. Here's a bunch of rope. Here's an orb made from a Nothic's eye. Here's a wand that looks like a wand of polymorph, but it's actually just a frog lashed to a stick. Here's a hag's severed finger. And in the next room, there's a prison, but who cares? Then there's a portcullis. We have to lift it. And then there's a ritual chamber. And in the ritual chamber is the horror. It's the monster we've all been waiting for. It's the shambling mound. Now, was there any sign whatsoever that it was going to be a shambling mound? No. Is there any sign whatsoever that the monster was in here? No. There were more signs that the monster was the ghosts. But no, it's a shambling mound, and at this point, horror's done. We know what the monster is. There it is. We have to fight it. When I say we, I mean the party. The party has to fight it, and then there's a whole like alternative way to beat it, but who cares at this point? As far as our purposes go, we see where the horror starts, where it stops. If you've played Death House, I don't know what your opinions are. I was not the biggest fan of it. I did not find it particularly scary because it kind of lingered too much on building up the house and then never really building up the horror. And part of that is because this is supposed to be the introduction to Curse of Strahd, and there's elements that tie into that. And if you're doing this as a one-shot, you don't get to enjoy any of that, which is fine. But outside of that, it just doesn't. We see where it can be improved. We see the elements. If you're a DM and you want to do this better, elements that I see. We've got the horror. It is not foreshadowed. The seeds of it are not planted anywhere. We have one seed at the very beginning. These two children who mention a monster, but that's it. We could mention a little more. We can give a little more. It doesn't have to. When I say mention a little more, it doesn't have to come from these characters. We could put signs of like, there's dried blood on the floor, and there are gouge marks in the stairs of something large passing through here. We can put down little signs that there's something, that there is a monster here. This isn't just like a normal house. And as the party gets closer, we can make the signs more obvious and more visible and more representative of its strength. So there's a little dried blood on the first floor, whatever. There's some leaves on the second floor. Weird. All right. On the third floor, there's a giant hole that is the size of the monster connecting two rooms. Giant hole in the wall that's connecting two rooms. Okay. And then there's a big old pit in the floor that leads directly down to here. I think that sets up the horror a lot better. It may put the party in a position where like they don't know where to go because it's possible that they haven't found a secret door yet, and they may think that this pit is the only way to progress, and they're going, I don't want to go down that pit. I don't want to go to that pit. That could happen. Better foreshadowing. That's what horror is all about. I don't know of any one-shots horror D&D. I don't know of any D&D horror one-shots that are a good representation of how to do horror well. If you do, let me know. I'd love to take a look. I think that's all I have for how to make a horror structure. Just to reiterate, it's all about the unknown. It's all about planting the seeds in the imagination of the players. I keep saying that, and sure, it's true. And letting those seeds blossom into the horror that your players experience. And you just need to fertilize it with the presentation of the game as a horror game. Lay down signs of weirdness, point the players in the direction of horror, and then let their imaginations do the rest. And then don't reveal the horror until it's time. Because once you do, that's it. That's the end. And you want to build it up in 4 stages. You want to build unease. You want to set a normal little world with just a little weirdness going on off in the distance. And then you want to bring the weirdness closer. It's approaching the party. It's getting closer. It's not there yet, but all the evidence of the weirdness is there. And then you bring it even closer. It's in the next room. It's down the pit. It's right. The party could go in there right now and see what it is. And then when the pivotal moment happens, that's when the party finally sees the terrifying thing. That's when you harvest all of the work that you've planted, all of the crops that you've planted. That's horror. Anyway, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask an experienced Dungeon Master about D&D, feel free to in the comments, in the chat. Happy to answer. Just let me know. I do have one more question that I'll be answering next time. I'll just foreshadow it now. Something that new players often ask about. Should my roles be public or private? It's a good question. I think there are some opinions about this too that are. Some people insist that you have to roll private. Like it's just a DM stricture. You roll behind the screen because that's how it's always been done, and that's how you have to do it. And other people will go, no, you have to roll public because that is just to avoid the temptation to fudge, and also to play your cards on the table. And you roll the players have to roll public, so you should roll public too. There's opinions. We'll discuss about that next time. This is where I'm leaving it though. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a good time. Hope you're having a good day out there. Hope things are going well. Feel free to leave me a comment with any questions, anything like that. And if you know of any good horror one-shots, good. Actually, I shouldn't say that. If you know of any horror one-shots that you think are interesting to look at, they don't have to be good, but they should be interesting to look at. Let me know. I'd love to take a look. Maybe I'll look at them on stream, give my thoughts. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to head out. Hope you're having a good day. See you all later.